What is going on, guys? Tom Brady's departure from New England is a reminder that the NFL is a cold and hard business. Most of the game's all-time great players don't have the fortune of spending the entirety of their careers in one place. Deion Sanders didn't, Peyton Manning didn't, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and even Tom Brady, the most accomplished player in NFL history, turned out to be anything but unmovable. As Brady begins a new chapter with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's a good time to look at which other unimaginable and shocking NFL departures could happen next. Number 10, Jimmy Garoppolo. You know, it's kind of weird. Jimmy G posted a 19-5 record over his first 3 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers. In his first full season as a starter, Garoppolo led the 49ers to a 13-3 record plus a trip to Super Bowl 54. But Garoppolo had a lackluster performance in that gut-wrenching 31-20 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. Head coach Kyle Shanahan clearly had no faith in Garoppolo, calling the most conservative gameplay imaginable. That's saying a lot that when you remember that Shanahan, then an offensive coordinator, watched his Atlanta Falcons blow a 28-3 lead in Super Bowl 51. Instead of learning from his mistakes, he kept panicking with Jimmy G. And of course, Garoppolo missed an open Emmanuel Sanders for a possible game-winning touchdown near the end of the big game. That promoted analysts and some 49er fans to suggest they dump Garoppolo and sign Tom Brady, who was a 49ers fan as a kid. Quite the turnaround just 2 years after giving him a $137.5 million extension. The fact that Shanahan couldn't trust Garoppolo in the Super Bowl has us thinking that the latter won't be a 49er for life. If San Fran doesn't win the big one within the next couple of years, Shanahan and Lynch should totally decide to cut ties with Garoppolo. It's impossible for some to imagine right now, but after Tom Brady's departure, anything is possible. Number 9, Ezekiel Elliott. Look up the definition of replaceable in a dictionary, and you'll probably see the words NFL running backs. Obviously that's not true, but you get what I'm saying. Most teams have quickly learned to not invest high draft picks and giant sums of cash in running backs. The mega Devontae Freeman, Todd Gurley, and Le'Veon Bell contracts sure became burdens pretty quickly. But Jerry Jones couldn't help but invest $90 million in Zeke ahead of the 2019 season, with $50 million of it guaranteed money. To be fair to Jones, Elliott was the NFL's leading rusher in 2 of his first 3 NFL seasons. He's an MVP caliber running back, so Jones had to pay Zeke no matter what. That said, it's impossible to confidently state that a running back will finish their entire career with one team. And if the Cowboys don't go on any deep playoff runs in the near future, Jones and head coach Mike McCarthy might agree to reshape the roster. They'll probably keep Dak Prescott for the long run. But if the Cowboys don't get it going again in these next 2 seasons, they might be forced to consider trading or releasing Elliott. Then watch Bill Belichick sign Zeke and turn him into a 2,000-yard rusher. Seriously. Number 8, Von Miller. The future Hall of Famer was the anchor of the 2015 Denver Broncos defense that suffocated its opponents en route to a Super Bowl 50 championship. Miller, who was named MVP of the big game, was awarded a 6-year mega extension worth $114.5 million prior to the 2016 season. But the Broncos have entered a rebuilding phase, and John Elway has seen practically every cornerstone of the Super Bowl 50 squad leave over just the past 4 years. Chris Harris Jr., Aqib Talib, Peyton Manning, Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas, DeMarcus Ware. All of them are gone. It's only Miller remaining, and with Denver needing to rebuild their defense, Elway might decide to cut ties with the elite pass rusher. Loyalty obviously doesn't matter to Elway, who's been very Bill Belichick-like in regards to letting veterans go just before they enter their twilight years. For a long time, it looked like the all-pro linebacker would be a Bronco for life, but the Broncos have endured 4 painful seasons since that Super Bowl victory. Perhaps Miller will get traded or released in the near future, which would allow him to pursue a second championship elsewhere. Number 7, Baker Mayfield. Hold on, wait. Mayfield was a first overall pick. He had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time. Just ignore the sophomore slump. He'll rebound and emerge as the face of the Cleveland Browns, right? Wait, you know who else was drafted early and enjoyed an excellent rookie year? Robert Griffin III, Sam Bradford, and Vince Young. And those guys didn't really have a lot of success after their stellar first seasons. Mayfield's attitude and carelessness in so many aspects may hurt the Browns in the long run. He had such a great rookie year but seemed to think that everything would be handed to him on a silver platter in 2019. Then the Browns went back to being the NFL's laughingstock. Just a reminder that new head coach Kevin Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry weren't the ones who drafted Mayfield. If they don't like his attitude and carelessness with football, he may not even finish out his rookie contract in Cleveland. If the Browns were to cut ties with Mayfield within the next 3 to 5 years, it would come as a shock given that he was a first overall pick. Not to mention all the talent he seemingly has. But it's already time for Mayfield to nut up, because he's got to prove himself. Or at least reprove himself. Number 6, Khalil Mack. Shocking Khalil Mack departure 2.0? It was a huge shock when Raiders head coach John Gruden decided to trade his star pass rusher to the Chicago Bears ahead of the 2018 season. Players of Mack's caliber don't come around very often, but Gruden did not care. He also traded a world-class receiver in Amari Cooper. So, yeah. Anyway, Mac has been a beast in his first 2 years with the Bears, helping them win the NFC North with a 12-4 record in 2018. But the Bears disappointed mightily in 2019, and it caused many to demand changes from GM Ryan Pace. They may cut ties with Mitch Trubisky at some point, but what about the defense? As great as Mac is, he's not the only game changer in Chicago. They added Robert Quinn in free agency, Roquan Smith, Kyle Fuller, and Eddie Jackson round out a tremendous unit alongside Mac as well. If the Bears hit crossroads in 2020 or 2021, Pace and Matt Nagy might decide to overhaul the roster a bit, and getting out of Mac's contract may be necessary if they want to retool the defense. Sounds crazy now, but a rare talent like Mac could soon be playing for a third team in less than a decade. I mean, crazier stuff has happened. Number 5, Patrick Peterson. Arguably the best cornerback of his era. Peterson earned Pro Bowl selections in each of his first 8 seasons. The first-time first-team All-Pro turned some heads when he requested a trade ahead of the 2018 deadline.
You what?
The Arizona Cardinals never found a deal, and Peterson would later apologize for making the trade request. But just because he's sorry, and just because Arizona didn't make a trade, it doesn't mean he'll be a Cardinal for life. The Cardinals are certainly trending upwards with Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, Chandler Jones, and newcomer DeAndre Hopkins. But no all-pro cornerback is untouchable, and Peterson might want to join a Super Bowl contender ASAP. I mean, Darrelle Revis and Deion Sanders chase rings in one-year deals, and it worked out. Maybe Peterson will get to that stage, where he decides to sign short-term deals with title contenders, rather than wait for Arizona to become elite again. You just never know. Number 4, Julio Jones. At some point, the Atlanta Falcons have to ask themselves, when do we rebuild? This team blew its shot at a Super Bowl by blowing a 25-point lead to the Patriots. That loss has clearly gotten in their heads, and most of the core players from that 2016 NFC Championship team are long gone. Matt Ryan is not getting any younger, but he's still a top 10 quarterback in the game. Atlanta isn't about to get rid of him, but the Falcons are up against the cap. The Falcons stubbornly refuse to change up anything. They've stuck by the front office and the coaching staff, and they still think Ryan and Jones have enough to take this team back to the Super Bowl. But those two aren't enough. If and when the Falcons miss the playoffs in 2020, they may just give up and trade away Jones for a premium, rather than waste his prime years on a non-competitive team. A Jones trade would certainly catch the football world off guard. But shall we mention yet again that Tom Brady was supposed to be a Patriot for life? It's a business. Jones and Atlanta Falcons fans may learn this in short time. Number 3, Joey Bosa. After he was drafted 3rd overall by the Los Angeles Chargers in 2016, Joey Bosa engaged in a lengthy contract holdout with his new team. It got so ugly to the point where his mother, Cheryl, said she wished they pulled an Eli Manning on draft day.
Let's go home! Let's go home!
Of course, that was a reference to Manning getting drafted 1st overall by the Chargers in 04, only to get swapped for Phillip Rivers after the former refused to play in San Diego. Bosa finally ended the holdout and signed a contract before the 2016 season began. Seeing how the Chargers were hesitant to pay a hyped-up prospect so much at the time, you can't help but wonder if they'll pony up the big dollars for Bosa now. He emerged as one of the league's elite pass rushers, and he's on his way to a $100 million plus contract. Plus, you know, the Chargers have a knack for wasting the primes of their star players. Ask Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates, Keenan Allen, LaDainian Tomlinson, so many players. So the Chargers and Bosa might have no problem agreeing to part ways down the road. Of course, the shock factor will come in at a high level because Bosa is a relatively young superstar. But again, nobody's untouchable in the NFL. Number 2, Russell Wilson. Despite leading Seattle to within a half yard of a second straight Super Bowl victory, Russell Wilson wasn't able to get that new contract he sought from the Seahawks in the 2015 offseason. It dragged on and on, to the point where rumors suggested that he could get traded. Finally, the Seahawks gave in and handed their star quarterback a 4-year contract worth $87.5 million. Then, as the 2019 offseason neared, it was time for a new deal. Early in the 2018 season, CBS Sports reported that there weren't any talks about a new deal, and that rival GMs believed Wilson would fetch 3 first-round picks in a trade. Well, the two sides finally agreed on a 4-year, $140 million extension in 2019, so Seattle fans got to breathe another sigh of relief. But that's 2 instances now where 1, Wilson popped up in trade rumors, and 2, the Seahawks waited a while to get a deal done with him. Don't forget that Pete Carroll and John Schneider liked Bill Belichick's idea of moving on from high-priced veterans. They willingly moved on from the Legion of Boom and other key players like Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, and Max Unger. Maybe the day will come where Carroll and Schneider decide to not extend an aging Wilson long-term, kind of like what Belichick did with Brady. And if the Seahawks think they can find a younger quarterback to build around when Wilson's deal expires, the future Hall of Famer could very well end up in a new uniform before his career ends. It sounds crazy, but it's not. If it can happen to TB12, it can definitely happen to Danger Russ. Number 1, Aaron Rodgers. After Tom Brady and supposedly Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers would be next on the list of players who will probably spend their entire career with one team. But Brady is gone. Mahomes is just starting out, so we'll see what happens to him. And now for A-Rod. The Green Bay Packers handed Rodgers a whopping 4-year extension worth $134 million before the 2018 season. But a lot went wrong for Green Bay afterwards. Mike McCarthy was fired before the end of the 2018 season, with reports suggesting that he had friction with Rodgers. And though Green Bay rebounded and made the NFC Championship in 2019, Rodgers rarely looked like the elite Pro Bowler and 2-time MVP we know and admire. The stats and data show that Rodgers has been on the decline for a while now. His last MVP season was in 2014, now in his mid-30s. It's unlikely that he's going to regain that level. So what if Rodgers, like 2019 Tom Brady, continues to decline and decline, to the point where the coaches realize they can do better? What if the Packers pull a Belichick and think we can win with a younger and better quarterback, instead of telling themselves we gotta be loyal to this guy who used to be elite? The Packers had no problem moving on from Brett Favre in favor of Rodgers. So who's to say Rodgers is untouchable? A-Rod has also talked about wanting to play in his 40s. That's fine, but if he continues his gradual decline, the Packers won't be the team paying Rodgers to play in his 40s. That will be somebody else. For Packers fans, a Rodgers departure will come off as shocking. But they also said the same thing before Favre actually left. And we all said the same before Brady left. So just keep that all in mind. Rodgers could very well leave Green Bay when you least expect it. What other shocking NFL departures do you think could happen next? Join me in the comment section below. Make sure to follow myself and TPS on social media. Great content all the time. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, we're on everything. Go find us. I know you see our ads. Go follow us. If you like this video, give it a like. It takes one click down below. And of course, subscribe to TPS. We post videos every day. Every day is a new video. Of course, thank you so much for watching. I'm Jason Biondo. I'll see you next time.
My knee.